Welcome to another Branding Over Breakfast. This morning I'm talking about branding for e-commerce and what that really boils down to. Instead of just keeping it more at how to build a brand, it's really about what are the most important points when we're talking about e-commerce stores and building up an e-commerce business. How does that translate to the ads more tangibly, and what are the points to remember when you're building a brand for your e-commerce store? So branding for e-commerce really boils down to 4 A's. Now you'll hear a lot of people, they might talk about 3 A's, but there's a fourth that is really important. So the 3 A's are awareness, affinity, and authority. But the fourth one that is becoming more and more and more important, and you do have to pay attention to it a lot, is actually authenticity. So authenticity is quickly actually becoming one of the most important ones of the 4 A's, but the 4 combined are very important for branding when you're talking about e-commerce stores and when you're actually talking about something tangible that you can apply to your advertising. So how does this break down? So essentially your USP, that's your unique selling point, that is extremely important to first figure out. So that's also the same thing as your differentiator. How are you different from the competitors and what makes you stand out? So essentially answering the question for your customers, what's in it for me? So you always want to be answering that question for them. And that becomes your unique selling point, your USP. So once you have that, you can then really add that into your communication across your advertisements, on your website and everything. So basically, branding is not just a logo, as I've mentioned in one of my other branding videos. It really is, if you were to boil it down, it obviously is about the creative. I would say it's more about the messaging. So that is that messaging that customers resonate with, and that's why it's incredibly important in order to arrive at your branding. It's incredibly important to know who you are talking to and not just talking to anybody and everybody. Because remember, if you try to catch 10 birds at once, you're not going to end up catching any at all. If you try to catch one, you're more likely to catch that one. So that's what we want to do, is always target, and communicate that in a way that resonates with your specific audience, your specific potential ideal customers. So consistency, I mentioned consistency. So consistency really should be within your message, it should be within your creative, your video, etc. The way that you treat your customers and what you say, so when you're answering customers, when you're engaging with customers, all of that needs to have the same consistency in the message, in the tone of voice, etc. That's how you develop your branding, and that's also how you build upon those 4 A's. As long as it's always authentic, that is something that people more and more can see through. They can really tell whether something is more genuine and authentic versus something is fake. I mean, just think about yourself as well. When you're buying something, you can see if someone is just giving a sales pitch or they're truly trying to talk to you and to help you, and they understand your pain, what you're going through. So when somebody has taken the time to understand what the person's pain point is and why they might need this product, that is when authenticity occurs. So instead of just saying, oh, talking about the, this is now 30% reduced, etc., those kind of ads and that kind of message talk at people. It's okay, discounts are great, but it should not be part of your branding. It should not be the first message you speak to people. That is more of a retargeting once people understand your brand and once people know what your product is. So the top of funnel, or your cold audience, basically those who have never heard of you, the message should very much always be about branding and building upon those 4 A's. So that is your top of funnel. Then all of the discounts and all of the extra incentives, and as well as addressing any objections, those are at the bottom of funnel or the retargeting stage. So that's how, so branding's at top of funnel for cold audience, everything else, retargeting for answering objections, potential objections, and also talking about discounts and added incentives to get people to buy your products. So that's essentially how it translates into your ads as well as your website. And to always remember that, with these 4, this is authenticity, we talked about a lot, affinity, so likability, how much do your customers really like your brand and your products and how you're communicating to them. Then there's authority, so building the authority is understanding and having that deep knowledge of the pain points that they're going through and how you can solve. So really building the authority in your space, and this can be through recognition. So if your products have been recognized by some global or national publications, for example, or gotten any awards, that builds authenticity, but also knowledge builds authenticity as well. Sorry, that builds authority. Knowledge also builds authority. And the last one was awareness. So of course that you have to always continuously work on your top of funnel, and this is a new audience who have never heard of you before, and those are awareness building ads. That can also be done through engagement ads, so that's PPE when we're talking about Facebook advertising. There should always be a campaign that is based on awareness building, engagement, and therefore taking that same ad ID and then putting it into a conversion campaign, that's going to be much more effective.